And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Turning Point. First and foremost, happy Father's Day to all the wonderful dads out there. And a special happy Father's Day to you, David.
Thank you,
I
guys.
know you have your family. Yep. David, okay, so we're going to dive into our first talking point. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of information out there. We've been doing so much research, so many topics. So we're going to go ahead and start with the BRICS nations. Then we'll shift into Ripple and tokenization. And then we'll kind of shift into the banking crisis and some other topics that just are very important and essential to this conversation. So we are seeing significant changes. More countries like Thailand just submitted into the application for the BRICS. And also, we already know that Saudi Arabia is already fully committed to the group. And I think that's the biggest news last week was the anticipation of the decline of the petrodollar, a development that we've all been seeing for a long time. You know, I just think the shift is closely tied to the green agenda. And I think I mentioned this last time, promoted by the Biden administration. And, you know, there are a lot of Americans out there that do not believe that the petrodollar is an imminent threat coming to an end. But I think for anyone to believe that the petrodollar end is not imminent, whether it's slow or gradual, doesn't change the facts. I think many in the West still remain unaware, and they're just so focused on their daily lives. And it's very disheartening because as there's a decreased demand for dollars, it's going to further harm the U.S. economy and cause drastic inflation. So we're no doubt observing the decline of an empire. And I think we are entering the final phase of a global reserve currency cycle. And I like to stress the importance of understanding this because it profoundly will impact the US and all of us, even here on this panel. And as the dollar demand just wanes away, fades away, those dollars are going to return to the US. And that will, again, lead to significant inflation. And of course, we see the BRICS nations moving towards hard assets to back their currencies or a basket of currencies, either way. The shift is going to be integrated with blockchain systems, and that will play a very crucial role, which is why we're going to be talking about that here shortly. I'm glad to have our panel here with us today, and I apologize for the last time David and we had to catch a plane. I was really eager for that conversation, but Vindel and Edo did a wonderful job. So, David, I know you're in a rush. We're going to go ahead and start with you. Then we're going to go to to Edo and my brother, and then circle back to myself. So, can you give us an update on what's going on with the BRICS?
Well, with BRICS countries, and what is really interesting when I think about what's going on with the BRICS block of nations, and of course we've seen Saudi Arabia, Argentina, and other countries being added to this group, is that term BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Interestingly enough, it was coined by J.P. Morgan. I believe it was J.P. Morgan that actually coined the term way back when, in around, I think it was like the 80s into the 90s, things like that. Now the deal is this: most financial people at the time really didn't take it serious. No serious consideration of the impacts. They felt like, okay, they don't have the infrastructure to really compete. And was just treated as something very nominal. And boy, has it ever turned into a major global changer. And right now, I mean, we are seriously watching the de-dollarization around the wide world. And when you think of these nations, when you think of Russia, you think of India and China right there. India and China alone make up almost half, well, maybe a third of the population here on Earth. And that is massive when you consider that a lot of the manufacturing that we have done here in the Western world all is done over there in these Eastern, in China and India, Taiwan, different countries where the labor market was really, really cheap. And what did we use to pay for that labor? Well, we were using, the world reserve currency, the dollar, to go and do that. That is off the table. That is off the table. And in fact, I sent over to Verson, I sent you an article that just had come out from Forbes not too long ago. And it was the IMF warning of a major, de-dollarization and dollar collapse in the view of what's happening in the wide world. And a lot of folks, I think what it is in the Western world, we're in this unbelief stage. We've never experienced it. Generationally, we've never experienced super hyperinflation. So a lot of folks believe it can just never happen. And that is so far from the truth. And what's going on with the BRICS nations in terms of the, economic and the trade and all that they're doing. It's a shift away from this Western powers, de-dollarization in a big way. When the impacts, and you've said it so eloquently, in your monologue there, a lot of people don't understand that the demand for US dollars has come from outside of the US, outside of the United States. And I love to point out this statistical fact that there are more $100 bills in the nation of Russia than there are right here in the United States. That is massive. And when you pointed that out, that all of those funds are coming back on shore, look, that is going to lead to hyperinflation. The Federal Reserve just can't burn it. But you know what's amazing enough? The Federal Reserve wants hyperinflation. Don't kid yourself. It is a wealth transfer towards the central banks. It's about control, consolidation, and whatever. And what we're witnessing right now, look, where are they marching us to right now? I mean, really, when you think about it, a lot of these countries are talking about the reintroduction of conscription and all that. We are headed to some sort of major global conflict. I genuinely believe that, but I believe it's with intention. And of course, it's kind of like this whole dying regime to the emerging regime. Now, it's not going to be just one nation base, but I do believe the BRICS are really where it's going to go. And in fact, it would not surprise me if we see Western allies joining the BRICS nations, like France. I think France is going to be up there for sure. I think they will definitely, they're already interacting with them on a trade relationship. France went out and bought, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of liquid natural gas, from the BRICS countries. You know what they paid for it with? Chinese yuan. That is amazing that a Western ally would do that. That shows you de-dollarization right before your very eyes. And here we are. We're trying to educate people so they can be prepared and ready for what's coming. Position themselves not to be a victim, but to literally survive it. May not only survive it, but potentially thrive it. In the article that Forbes put out about the de-dollarization, the IMF warning that, you know what they came out as well and said? They said there could be an explosion in these digital assets, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP. Really, really amazing. And it is quite interesting to see what's going on. So that's what I'm thinking about that.
A lot to unpack over there. Very big things you said, and you're absolutely right, spot on. Another thing that I'd like to point out before shifting to Edo is that I was doing some research, and what you see happening with BlackRock and Citadel in Texas, turns out there's some research that indicates Texas might actually join the BRICS. And I know that sounds crazy, guys. That's going to be some very big news. So I'm still doing my research on that. I'm talking to some people in there, including Andy Scheckman. So we're going to be discussing this week, but there's like some indication that even Texas, some states in the U.S., because there is a division, might eventually join the BRICS nations too. I'm not kidding. That's weird, right? Edo, I think you're on mute. What are your thoughts?
I think David just hit the snake on the head. There is something very interesting that you said, that there is a major transfer of wealth right now that's happening, especially to the central banks, as the purchasing power of literally everyone in the world is diminishing right now. So I want to point out that I think the key really is on BRICS currency, because BRICS nations are now working on a common currency. And for me, that doesn't mean that the BRICS currency is going to become a world reserve currency. I think it's quite the opposite, but that solves the bilateral trading problem. So just think for a second that they are already trading in their own currencies, as you have the cases for China trading with Russia, Russia trading with India. And the only problem that we have right now in this trading, because they are already diverting away from the US dollar as a reserve currency. But the major issue right now is that, let's say that Russia is selling oil to India, and they are trading using, let's say, Russian rubles or Indian rupees. And the problem really comes the problem comes to the seller, because what is actually Russia going to do when they get the Indian currency? So what the BRICS currency really solves is that, let's imagine Europe as a block. I can actually take euros here and I can spend in multiple countries. And I think BRICS right now is working in bringing as many countries as possible. And that's what's going to give a lot of power to the currency. So you're going to be able to do international trade using the BRICS currency. So you're going to buy goods in China, in Brazil, in Russia, and the more these blocks actually going to gain strength, the stronger the BRICS currency is actually going to be in the future, let alone the fact that the US dollar is continuously getting devaluated. And there has been a white paper that is circulating around. It's called UNIT. We not really know if that's going to be the definitive name, but they're working on a currency that's said to be 40% backed by gold. And that really is what we used to have on the past with the dollar. That's usually 40% of the currency that gets backed by gold. And for me, that only shows that this is already concluded. I don't, many people think that is something that's going to happen in the future. For me, it's already a done deal, has already been decided. There is a reason why Central Bank of China, Central Bank of Russia, most of the central banks from BRICS nations were accumulating gold silently. And now gold is actually making all-time highs. Meanwhile, you have China dumping U.S. treasuries, and who's actually going to want to buy U.S. treasuries in the future? I really see that there's going to be a major transformation, and G7 now is going to have they're going to have a meeting. They are actually meeting in these days in Italy, and they are discussing about the major concerns that they have right now with BRICS becoming so stronger.
Yeah, very good point. Thank you for that, Edo. Vendel, I'd like to get your take on this.
Yeah, so in regards to what Edo just mentioned, as well as what David mentioned, how the IMF said that there could be an explosion in digital assets. Well, the thing is, gold specifically and digital assets are soon, in my opinion, going to party like it's 1999. And the reason is because obviously creating money out of thin air, but the government and the Federal Reserve, they respond to recessions and depressions with their tools, okay? So when the economy is sinking ship, which it is in this case, in the current environment, the Fed, they respond to it with either slashing interest rates and pumping liquidity, or they do them both at the same time. Yes, now here's the thing, that means more borrowing and more spending. And they always do this. It's just how they operate. They use their tools, and these are their tools. Now, they're going to continue to borrow and spend, print money out of thin air, like there's no tomorrow. Eventually, they're going to cut rates while they're doing that, pump liquidity into the system. And this is why we also go to war. Because when the economy is failing, which it is, and it's falling apart, we go to war to justify printing money and spending, to maintain obviously our US dominance and world reserve currency status. But in the situation, gold and digital assets, they love this scenario. So in the 2008 great financial crisis, the Fed, they slashed rates from 4.75% in late 2007 to near zero rates by 2009, and kept them there for about 6 years. All central banks did this too. This was your interest jubilee. It happened in 2009. Now, gold significantly rose during that period, and asset owners got richer, while most people that didn't own assets got poorer. And this is literally a roadmap of history repeating itself, and that's where we're going. But as David and Ito was saying, it's going to be an explosion with some of these assets, but it's going to be even greater of an explosion.
Yeah, very, very well said, Vendel. You know what, guys? I'm going to go ahead and jump to the banking crisis first, and then we'll shift into tokenization of digital assets, if that's okay. Is that right with you guys? You're comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay. And I just want to touch basically what my brother said. That's a very important, critical talking point that he also raised earlier, was a banking freeze. And I was doing a lot of research on this. Obviously, as the petrodollar goes away and collapses, that signals the beginning of a major banking crisis. And I think it's just very clear that the crisis obviously is being engineered like Mindell said, they have their tools, but they're playing this game, right? This is engineered, again, to consolidate wealth. And this ties us into the book, The Great Taking. It's a remarkable book. I haven't read it, guys, but I have listened to the author talk about this. And it basically details how bad policies have quietly orchestrated a major transfer of wealth to the top 1%. And right now we're seeing a lot of bullshit documents saying that we're in a booming economy. The numbers are not accurate, right? It's crucial to understand that the prosperity that you're seeing is, again, limited to the wealthy, the 1%ers. It's not working for the working man, right? For everybody else. And for those, I think, paying attention, everything we're discussing here, these are just the cracks in the system that are already visible. And the US banking system is fraught with so much risk right now. It's over leveraged, it's undercapitalized. And this just signals a very dangerous place to be, to have your money. And people even don't even remember that it's been signed into law for a bank bail-in. And that's for the institutions that are too big to fail. And even Jerome Powell, like 2 weeks ago, mentioned that there are going to be more consolidations in the banking sector. So this is just another warning sign that keeping your money in the bank carries a lot of risk. And the situation, based on everything we just talked about, is accelerating. And it's not improving for anybody else. Inflation is going to get a lot higher as more of those dollars come back to the US, because other countries don't want those dollars. So it's always essential just to emphasize again that you got to take proactive steps to invest in assets like digital assets that are going to work for you, and even hard assets, especially when banks have never truly served in your best interest. And a lot of people do ask me if a banking crisis is possible. And I say a systemic banking crisis is not just possible, it's inevitable. And given the derivatives markets that are tied to these banks as well, and also the debt defaults we're going to see in the commercial real estate, there's a bubble about to burst here. So just given, like, the real question is just how is this crisis going to unfold? And I think, like my brother said, war is always the answer when things begin to fail. And it will give them an ability to even print even more money and strengthen their position if necessary. So, David, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that statement you just made. I mean, it is one of the quintessential systems that they have set in place in order to have every excuse they ever needed to just inflate the dollar and print like crazy. War has been their machine of choice. Let's be honest, the military industrial complex massively is there to defend and support the central banks around the wide world. And it's kind of a symbiotic, in terms of the relationship there. And it's happened every single time we've been here. Now, to touch on, leaving money in the banks, a lot of people will think, well, I'm not in the market, I'm in cash because, I don't trust the market, on. Well, if you're in cash, you are in the market. And the deal is this: your unemployed funds sitting in your bank literally day by day are losing their purchasing power. You are literally on a losing end, and we've seen that so much. I mean, since 1913, when the Federal Reserve was instituted in the United States, the US dollar has now lost 99% of its purchasing power. That is truly phenomenal. And I literally believe they will push this envelope to where it's like 100, 120, 130% loss in purchasing power since they've been instituted. The whole thing, the only bullet they have in their gun is to inflate. And of course, it's their greatest temptation. Why? Government can inflate their debt. Look, they just go out there, borrow more. You and I, we can't do that. Now, we're watching around the wide world with European central banks and other banks, central banks, where they have reduced the interest rate, right? They took it by 25 basis points. They dropped it. Federal Reserve has paused it, and now we're looking into August as a potential drop and depend. I mean, they're just playing it safe. The thing is this: when you want to consider that, yes, they've dropped those rates. Now, do you think that those rate drops are going to translate to the average rank and file? Absolutely not. Most people don't even realize that it's not even their bank that approves whether they get approved for the credit rating or this, that, or not. It is the Federal Reserve. Now, you can even phone your bank and fact check that. When it comes to your credit cards, your limits, and all that kind of stuff, do you know what? It's the Federal Reserve that has the ultimate say as to whether you get that or not. That's a fact check. And all of these credit scoring systems, look, you could have an 800 plus credit score right now. Walk into your bank and the risk is too high for them to absolutely cut you a loan for 50 grand or whatever, which is literally nothing in consideration of what these big banks. This drop in the interest rates is easy money for the banks. It's easy money for these big players to just go out there and continue to do what they have been doing. Look, it was the FDIC about a week or two ago. They came out and they said, hey, look, we got this list of banks that are really vulnerable, like you have pointed out, Versan, about the vulnerability of the banking market. And in there, this is what they said, that they are exposed to, listen to this, $517 million of losses. And guess what the losses are associated with? Mortgage-backed securities. Are you ready for round two? That is exactly what's going down. They're playing it by the playbook that they've got. It's with intention, and you're absolutely right. The next one is a bail-in. And by the way, interestingly enough, that is with all of it's not just the US. You got Canada in on that bail-in. You got the UK in on that bail-in. You got the Australian Central Bank. They're all in on it. They've all crafted their legislation for the next one. Why? Because the next one is coming. And this is the plan where they literally transfer the wealth from the individuals over to the control of the central banks. It's with absolute intention. That's why you can have the arrogance of some of these guys that come out there on the WEF and on and on and on, where they'll say, oh, by such and such a time, you're not going to own anything, but you're going to be really, really happy. Why are you going to be so happy? Oh, because, Big Brother's going to come in and we're going to take care of you. And this whole idea, by the way, guys, right now we know in this digital asset space, there's a big philosophy of Nasara Jasara, the debt forgiveness kind of deal. Well, yeah, they're going to have to do a reset. There will be debt forgiveness, but I do not believe for 1 second it's going to be without some sort of a payday. Not on your life. Look, and even you can go way back in history. And one example I love to use is back in the famine, of Egypt in the Bible, and these people, they would come in and they would, they give their money to buy the grain. Then they came in and traded their livestock for the grain. Then they started trading their land and possessions for the grain. Then they started trading themselves. Don't kid yourself. It is not going to be a free ride, that's for sure. They may forgive and reset the whole system, but it's not going to be without a price. I'll tell you that right now. Oh, you're muted, Versan.
I like keeping it off mute, guys. I keep it off mute for that reason. But hey, what you said there is so important because people need to understand that this is the Cloward pivot strategy. And it's basically a deliberate effort to overwhelm and just break all systems down at the same time to consolidate the wealth, right? So always remember to continuously prepare and just be ready, right? And diversified as well. So Edo, what are your thoughts?
Well, now I unmuted myself.
Edo?
Yeah, so my thoughts is, well, I want to expand it to Europe, right? So I happen to live in Greece, and recently I was also in Cyprus. And around in 2013, so we're talking here over a decade ago, there has been the banking crisis in Greece where assets were frozen and overnight people were unable to actually get money from the bank or actually anything that is related to accessing your assets. And when I talk to more old people here in Greece, because remember guys, I'm not from here, I just moved here a couple of years ago, so I was not here when this happened. But when I ask them questions, it's always the same answer. Nobody believed it would happen until one day they wake up and it had actually happened. And they were unable to get access to their funds. And here we are, over a decade after, and Greece hasn't recovered fully from this huge crisis that happened over 10 years ago. So the economic consequences are actually greater than we can imagine. And I shared some video on my X page a couple of days ago where someone was saying that it's not going to be a crisis, it's going to be a Great Depression. And I really believe so. So I think we have to make our choices right now, because there's going to be two choices, right? So either you're going to be crushed by the banking crisis and the economical reset that is coming, and you're going to watch the financial institutions to make money, the people to get poor, and you're going to be getting poor together with the masses, or you're going to have an active role, you're going to take actions right now towards protecting your wealth. And the way you secure your wealth is actually being very careful on the percentage of fiat currency that you hold in relation to your total assets. So in my case, I hold very little fiat currencies. I don't feel comfortable by having more than 20,000, 30,000 euros in cash, in euros, for example, because it's not only the collapse as the US dollar, as we know, but all these pairs of currencies, when you have USD euros, USD Australian dollars, let's be honest, most of the Western currencies, I don't really know about the BRICS currencies. We can discuss that in more details if it's going to be beneficial for them, but I'm not very optimistic for the majority of countries. I think it's a global situation and people are just getting poor. And the thing is that they are being cooked very slowly, because I don't know if I pay a lot of attention to this, but whenever I go to the supermarket or I'm traveling or I'm doing things, I'm living in the real world, and everything is getting more expensive. And I just see that the purchasing power of the average, I'm not talking only about Americans, but the purchasing power of the average European is destroyed. I mean, the reset is already completed, I would say, because you have most people living in the European capitals, they can't even afford to buy a property. We come to the point now they can't afford to rent a property, which is even more funny. I mean, funny in a ironical way, because if you take that, I can talk about Portugal, Spain, Italy. Okay, most of European countries here, it's a disparity. They don't have 10,000 euros in savings. Nowadays, if you want to rent a property in the center of Milano, in the center of Lisbon, you need to have at least 3 rents plus the deposit. That equals at least over 10,000 bucks. So the situation in Europe is that people are being forced out of the own population is being forced out of the city center, and the ones that are actually remaining, they have to rent rooms. So you have the situation now that you have some Chinese that owns 10 different properties. Each Chinese has 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 apartments. So you just see that there's this concentration of real estate properties in the hand of few, and then you have a population now that they have to actually rent rooms. They can't afford. It's not even the point you can't afford to buy a property. Most people can't afford to rent a property. So do you see that you will own nothing and be happy? I just think they forgot to remove the happy part, because that's not a great reality for the majority of Europeans. Yeah. So I think we already came point of no return for the majority of population. But the good news is that whenever there is a huge crisis, there is also opportunity to make a lot of money if you are positioned on the right assets. And I think that's what we are building here. That's what we are teaching our audience. And that's what I hope for everyone that is watching our live streamings, to not be negative about the future. I mean, we have to acknowledge that there is this transformation, and we have to actually silently take actions, but in a very active way, so that we can protect our wealth and also profit from this great transformation.
Nicely said. And, you know, it's important for people to understand that this is happening all over the world. And this just confirms it as well, right? So it's not just happening here in the US, it's everywhere. And like Edo said, you have to not be, you know, discouraged by it. Just take action and do what you can to mitigate the risks. Vindel.
Yeah, Edo made a very good point, that this information and understanding what's going on, it can give you an advantage and an opportunity to capitalize, because anytime there's a crisis, you know, bad things happen, but there's always opportunity to get ahead. So whether you take the opportunity or not, at least if you're aware of what's really going on and what's unfolding, if you're not at least going to capitalize on this and profit, at least you can protect yourself and be aware, since you understand and you know what's coming next. But if you don't know, you really can't do anything, and you're going to be a sheep going to the slaughterhouse. So that's how I see it. Now, in regards to the International Monetary Fund, well, this is interesting. Well, first of all, David brought this up earlier, the warning they issued. But what Ito said was pretty interesting too. He said in 2013, you know, we had the financial crisis in Cyprus. Of course, he spoke to some people in that part of the world, so it's a unique perspective he could get really speaking to someone. But what really happened? So the IMF, they intervened during the Cyprus financial crisis in March of 2013. And the bailout was basically necessitated by the severe financial crisis that Cyprus was dealing with at the time. And the reason why is because due to its over-leveraged banking sector, significant exposure to Greek debt, and the broader Eurozone crisis. Now, tell me that doesn't sound like the same banking issues we're dealing with here in the US. It absolutely does. So what happened? To stabilize the economy, they had to intervene. So the International Monetary Fund, that's the IMF, along with the European Union, and the European Central Bank, the big dogs on that side of the world, they agreed to a 10 billion euro bailout package. And this assistance was basically conditional on the implementation of strict measures and then even structural reforms. Now, after restructuring of Cyprus's banking system, including the controversial bail-in, which actually took place of uninsured deposits, just as Ito was stating, that actually happened. And a lot of people did lose their money, and they had to use uninsured deposits, this is the banking freeze, to recapitalize the banks because they were going under. And the goal was to restore financial stability and prevent a crisis from spreading to other parts of the Eurozone. But that happened in 2013. Now, the over-leveraged banking system is even worse in the United States at the moment than that time. And on top of that, there's even more debt. So we're in an even bigger bubble. So if that happened in 2013, you can bet your butt it's going to happen again, but this time it's going to be even greater. And that's why this information that these gentlemen are sharing right here and what we're talking about is essential and could actually determine potentially losing everything or at least being protected.
Very nicely said, Vindel. And yeah, it's important to reiterate that there is a lot of risk in the U.S. banking sector. Remember, it is uninsured to a large degree. I don't think the FDIC can handle what's coming. It's overvalued, like you said. I said undercapitalized also, and extremely overleveraged. But again, something to point out is the International Monetary Fund. That's like the mafia, right? They have these economic hitmen who come into your country. They destabilize your government. They destabilize your financial system. And what they do is they come back and say, hey, well, we can lend a hand to you. And that's how they consolidate governments and consolidate power. That has been going on for a very long time. So we've even talked about this in the last discussion, that it could get to a point where the crisis is so big that central banks cannot handle the crisis. And then the IMF will come in with the ESDR. Remember, the agnostic currency. That's what David was talking about. And we believe XRP will play a key role in all of this. Talking about XRP, we're going to move into the next topic now. And we're going to discuss some of the latest developments that we've seen in partnerships involving Ripple. And, we talk about this all the time, guys. Just every day we get more confirmation that we are moving closer to a new monetary system. But to some degree, it's going to be backed by hard assets and a basket of commodities. But we do get confirmation that Ripple and the digital asset XRP will be at the very core of this new system. That's a concept we've discussed for many years now, right? And obviously, tokenization of real-world assets plays a massive role in this shift. So as we move towards a tokenized world, we're going to need a scalable, immutable, secure, transparent protocol, blockchain protocol to handle all of this, right? And again, hard assets are going to be crucial because they provide the stability that's necessary and even the trust for digital transactions to take place, right? Unlike dollar, and the trend, what we're discussing here is accelerating. So it's nice and comfortable to get that confirmation that Ripple and its technology, again, will be at the heart of all of this. But Ripple recently announced another partnership with, I don't know how to pronounce the name correctly, but I think it's Archax, if I'm not mistaken. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Archax, whatever. Okay. So this is a UK-based company. And again, another significant significant indication that Ripple is playing a big role in the tokenization part. So in my opinion, like Edo said, we've talked about this a lot. I think this is already set in stone. And I think they're just laying the groundwork again for the new system to come out, and very slowly. And I think that's, they're waiting for some catalyst. And I think the war has something to do with this as well, but to introduce this new system. So I'm just saying, we always get these disclosures that, you know, whatever we've been talking about has been happening for the scenes for some time. But you know, it's important also to understand when these news breaks out, the headlines and stuff, right? It means that the plans are already in place. Anyways, very positive news for Ripple. So I'll start with David. I know you guys did a lot of research on this.
Well, with real world tokenization, and of course, this, I agree with you 100%. When it gets to the news, all the betting has been laid out by that point. You know what I mean? And these guys have been working on it for a good while. And real world tokenization, of course, it's a two-sided coin, right? It's a double-edged sword, as you would. First of all, I do believe real world tokenization of assets. And when you're talking about that, you're talking about, of course, commodities, gold, silver, oil, things like that. Of course, futures will be in that. Artwork is going to be a part of that. Real estate, certainly a part of that. Right now, this whole digital asset space is valued at what, 2.6 trillion, 2.8 trillion, something like that. Real estate alone is a $360 trillion global market. I mean, you imagine that kind of, volume coming in to this space, this digital asset space. You're talking about a massive, massive level of appreciation that most people have not even conceived. And that's why for a long time, I've been coming out and saying, and I know you guys have too, that this will probably represent, one of the greatest wealth transfers in the history of mankind. We really do. And that's what we're moving into. It's the evolution of our financial infrastructure. It's where the world is going. And why is that? Well, it's the second side of that double-edged sword. Tokenization of real world assets is also going to introduce a level of, tracking and control that we have never, ever experienced before. Now, there are going to be nation states that are going to really take advantage of that in a massive way. We've already seen that in China with their social credit system and all that kind of stuff. Of course, you will see some kind of a debate in the Western powers towards that as well. But it's kind of like, it's unavoidable. It is unavoidable. That is what's coming. Why? Because it's that type of tracing and tracking and the speed in which it happens, right? That gives people confidence in these new markets, because these current markets right now are all based on the confidence of what people have in the economies that issue those currencies and represent those markets, right? It's all confidence based. Well, when it all blows to smithereens, like we know that it's absolutely going towards a train that is literally going to a blown out bridge, and it's ready, and you can see it coming. We just haven't reached the full totality of it yet. But needless to say, when that happens, where do you think the confidence on a global level is going to be? When people see the revaluation of their dollars in bank accounts because of the bail-ins and all of this other, and the loss of their positions wealth-wise that are investing in their 401ks or in mutual funds around the world and all that, and watching that be getting evaporated and stuff like that, while central banks just get richer and richer, that confidence is going to be off the table. So what's going to happen next? Well, they're going to have a system that is 100% has to be backed by something everybody will believe in. And we want a trustless system. Now, when we talk about real world tokenization of assets, and we use the word trustless system, it means this: we're trusting the technology. We're not trusting one another. You see, and that is where the confidence is going to be. The confidence is going to be in the infrastructure that is going to be the underpinning of this new economy. And what's going to back that? Well, you're going to see, you'll look right now in Dubai, and you guys know Dubai very well. The DMCC in Dubai is, and I think that stands for Dubai Mercantile Commodities and stuff like that. I think that's what it is. But needless to say, they're already tokenizing gold. So you are going to watch the tokenization of hard assets that people will have confidence in. Why? Because those assets are agnostic. And the system upon which they're being built is agnostic. Now, Ripple is out there, major player. We know they are. Have you ever seen a corporation that could connect so many dots I mean, for me, I just, and I'm 56, I don't even consider myself old, but needless to say, I have never, ever seen a situation where you have an organization that's interconnected with the IMF and, the BIS and all these other major financial and central banks around the wide world, building the infrastructure for the evolution of money with central bank digital currencies, and a major spearhead player when it comes to real world asset tokenization. I think it's going to literally blow people's minds. And a lot of people will come out right now, and the absolute FUD that is thrown at XRP, right? Because of course, well, it's not doing it. It'll literally be, I think it'll be turnkey, be an overnight situation. It'll blow people's minds, and the train will have left the station. And most people that are out there not really, paying attention will miss it. And I want to finish with this one point. A lot of people right now, we're worrying about our $100 or few $1,000 investment into some of these infrastructures, some of these, digital assets. You got these major banks and whales out there literally spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars daily into these assets. I'll tell you what, I'm paying attention. That's where I pay attention when I see and hear that kind of stuff. And so they can see where the future is going. Why? Because of the architects of that future. Do you think for 2 seconds that they don't know what's coming? They know 10 steps in advance, like Versan said there.
100%. It's just so incredible that, again, the four of us can get together. We've been so early on this thing. It's incredible. And I'm not trying to take credit for research or anything, but we've been on point. The four of us here, before we even started talking together, we've been on point for years now about what's playing out. So one thing I want to mention before going to Edo about what you just said is the crucial point to consider that tokenization. It's a technology I understand that we embrace, right? And we believe that we can mitigate some of the risks associated with central bank digital currencies, universal basic income, however you want to sugarcoat it, okay? But you have to understand, by investing in these technologies, we're also embracing the system that can also possibly enslave us, right? Remember, it gives, it brings a lot of benefits, tokenization, sure, but it also gives those in power great control over what you can and cannot own and what can be confiscated digitally. That's how I see it. So it's important to just recognize the risks associated with all-out digital infrastructure. And that's why I'm always holding hard assets and even resources like food and water. So Edo, what do you think?
Well, I would say tokenization is a done deal. I have no doubts that everything is about to be tokenized, and is happening as we are speaking. It is happening in real time. And some of the people who actually follow me closely will see that sometimes I do videos explaining tokenization, and I might seem very enthusiastic about it, but at the same time, tokenization is the one single topic that mostly concerns me. In every segment, we can go from so let me give some insights here. Supply chain management on the blockchain, tokenized. So that's also very dangerous one. Your healthcare data is going to be on the blockchain. Of course, you have some advantages. Let's say, I think sometimes we have to be a bit more practical, because we talk about these things and people might not understand the concept. But let's put it very shortly. Let's say you are traveling to another country, have an accident, and they can have your data in real time, so it don't depend, let's say, on the NHS, the British healthcare system, to actually provide real time data on your healthcare. If you are traveling to China or to Japan, you have an accident, they can access your data and see that maybe you have allergy to some type of medication. Well, that's a great use case, but they can also instrumentalize this against you, right? So healthcare on the blockchain, the tokenizing, as you guys said before, real estate is the main one. I said I went to the Paris Blockchain Week. They tokenizing solar panels. I've came across a company that's tokenizing water. So you guys see that even the things you would never suspect that they could tokenize, they are being tokenized. I mean, might come to a point, words are going to be tokenized. Everything is going to be tokenized. So the great part of that is that it's a huge industry, that if you can take part as an investor, well, if something is happening, 100% possibility, and you have to choose, you want to be an early investor or a late adopter, I prefer to be an early investor. At least I'm going to benefit financially, and that's going to give me the mechanisms later on to take the greatest preventions. And as Versant said, going to hold uh, tangible assets. You're going to hold real things like food supply. Maybe with money you can buy land and you have your own search of water. I'm just giving practical examples here. So I think it's very important to know your enemy. I know a lot of people who think that Donald Trump is going to come on power and he's going to solve 100% of the problems in the world. And I don't like to give power or hope to another people. I like to actually know that I am in control and that I can take the necessary measures to protect my wealth and my family in a way that I don't depend on the state, I don't depend on the government, I don't depend in either they're gonna tokenize or not. I'm just taking and protecting my wealth and my family in the greatest way that I can. And I think it really comes down to, I already say this on the turning point here, know your enemy. So I probably the one that is 100% against tokenization, but every day I am reading and studying about tokenization because I really want to understand how this is actually going to operate. Meanwhile, you have 99% of the population, I bet you 10,000 XRP that if you go ask here in the streets that I live in Athens about tokenization, if I interview 100 people, we might find 99 that don't know anything about tokenization. They don't even know that's actually happening. And also this is tied to the fact that what I said before, you will own nothing and be happy. So they preparing the people because now you're going to have buildings that are going to be tokenized. Of course, there is the positive aspect again. We have to see the both sides. So you're going to open a building for foreigner investors. So let's say someone wants to buy a fraction of a building in the city center of Athens. You don't really have to be geographically in Europe, and you're going to be able to invest. But that really tells us that they want the population to own nothing because now, as I said before, you can't afford to buy an entire property. Well, here's a token that represents 0.1% of the ownership of certain building that's going to be located there. And that's really concerning for me because they don't want you to have ownership of the assets. I mean, it's kind of already like this because right now, if you don't pay taxes over your property, the government can come and seize your property. But they taking this to another level. They take it to the point where tokenization is gonna actually be extremely dangerous, in my opinion. So I have this double view. You understand? I am optimistic from the investment perspective, but I'm very concerned about how they're going to use tokenization to change people's behavior. And I'm not sure how the world's going to look 20 years or 10 years from now.
Yeah. And you made some very good points over there. And I love the fact that you say know your enemy. I think that's the most important thing. It really is. Again, we are seeing all these changes. We're going to shift to you, Vendel. Just give me 1 sec. It's just, I want people to also understand that while tokenizing, they're selling it through convenience. That's how they're going to sell it to people, right? They're going to sell it to you through convenience. Every time they sell it to you through convenience, they're taking something away from you, right? And we're seeing, again, lots of changes in society too. And I think this is going to be exemplified by developments in artificial intelligence and technology, something we're not going to talk about today, but you just have to be mindful that these changes are going to force us to adopt to them. We have to, right? But in the process, and I talked about this on a podcast last week, we shouldn't lose our humanity in the process. And this is something I think about a lot because personally, I actually fear digital money because it has the potential to control us. So I think anything digital or moving into a new system that can be controlled is something we all need to be mindful of. It's very dangerous. Vendel.
Oh, guys, I just wanted to say, sorry, Vendel, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm having to jet. So look, this has just been amazing. Just give my last 2 cents on this. what we're sharing here right now, guys, for the audience out there, we're sharing it for your absolute benefit, because each person on this panel, we want you to make it. We want you to make it. We want you to come out on the other side of this, whole, or at least unscathed as much as possible. But you gotta, like Verson and Ido, Vandal, myself, what we've been saying, you got to get ready for it. You got to get ready for it. Well, guys, it's been a great discussion. I got a plane to catch, so I'm out of here anyway. Thanks so much, guys. Great discussion.
David, yeah, man. I miss you a lot, man, already. It's funny. I heard Judy woke up and she was like, "Where's Verson?"
Yeah, that's right.
That was funny.
Yeah, we've been trailing around together so much. You guys are family, and really appreciate the value you bring to this ecosystem in such a powerful way. All of you are just, phenomenal. And what a resource for the folks out there that are literally getting to hear this information, not having to pay a dime to get it. Take advantage of it, guys, because, the day may come where they might not even allow us to, put this info out there. So who knows? Anyway, guys, bless you. I have to take off.
David.
See you around.
We'll talk to you later.
Take care, David. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye. Vandal, I still want to get your take on everything. So please go ahead, put your 2 cents in, or 3 cents, or 4 cents, or whatever.
I got a few cents. So in regards to tokenization, decentralization, look, I'm going to give you the information. I'm going to give it to you guys straight. Whether you agree or not, that's up to you. But this is what we do. And we have information, and we're presenting it to people just so that people have an opportunity to position themselves and really protect themselves and understand what's going on. So ultimately, what's happening is tokenization is the ultimate goal, okay? The people, the shadowy figures running the monetary system, the financial system, the banking system, and ultimately they control the government, okay? The government does not control the corporations. The corporations and the financial institutions control the government, okay? So the policies in place are in place because it's in the corporations, aka BlackRock financial institutions' best interest. So that's why the policies are in place that allow them to do what they want to do. This involves tokenization, and this ties into digital assets, cryptocurrency, but ultimately the ultimate goal is the tokenization of everything on the blockchain, digital IDs, tokenizing nature, tokenizing all assets. This is the ultimate goal, okay? Now, people they think this is conspiratorial, but it's not, and I'm going to tell you the truth right now, that I think it's important that people understand that narrative creation is emphasized in psychology. It's emphasized in behavioral economics with Mossad and Central Intelligence Agency and all intelligence agencies around the globe, okay? This is invaluable information I'm giving people right now. Now, these fields understand that individuals like you and I and average people, they understand that we seek coherent explanations for complex phenomenon and situations in the world. And we're more likely to believe a narrative that provides some sense of clarity and makes sense to us. So they are specialized in storytelling, narratives, and psychological operations to get you to believe something. Ultimately, this is what they use the news channels for. It's not to inform you. It's to push an agenda, to get you to believe something and promote a narrative. So be extremely careful believing what some people say about decentralization and centralization of the new financial system. Here's a fact. A lot of people think the decentralized financial system is going to completely 100% eliminate the control of the shadowy figures and BlackRock and the monetary bankers that control the world, okay? But the truth is, it's not. Yes, it will perhaps give people more control, maybe give them a little less options and control, but it's not going to 100% eliminate their control and put them under the ground. That's not happening. That is a narrative that has been orchestrated to confuse and give false hope to even the intelligent people in this space. And I urge you to take extreme cautions with this. This information I'm giving you is extremely sensitive, but this is the truth. So the decentralized aspect of it, there are components to it that will be decentralized for this infrastructure. But don't just rely on that and think that you're protected 100%. You need to take actions to protect yourself.
Well, I totally agree with you, Vendel. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, these are conversations Vendel and I will usually have off record. I'm glad you brought it to the attention, and that way we can discuss it even further maybe next time. But, you know, I want everyone to understand that we are, first of all, what you said, Vendel, is right. I think they've created the illusion that, you know, certain things are going to play out that way they can fool others. And, you know, we don't have to get into that right now. I think Vendel explained it so perfectly. But understand that we're still in the early stages of everything. And this is why Vendel and I try our best, and Edo too, to look at things from a macro perspective. It helps us see the bigger picture while trying to still study the micro details, but they don't really change the overreaching trends that we're trying to talk about here. As far as the technology, you have to understand that there are certain technologies out there that will complement the interoperability part of all of this, right? And that's, again, why it's so crucial to diversify your portfolio, not just with digital assets, but also by understanding the economic landscape and how not just different technologies will fit together to give you the advantage as we move into this new financial era, but also you have to understand you want to have hard assets out there, anything that's outside the system as well, because this new financial system is evolving towards a hybrid model, and that's where it's going. It's a hybrid model between hard assets backed with digital currencies, right? So, and I talk about XRP a lot, and so do all of us here, because we know for a fact, and you don't even have to look for this anymore, it plays such a crucial role in the system, not just facilitating cross-border payments and potentially acting as a global reserve settlement mechanism, but there are just other things in with the XRP that the institutions will use, for instance, even the liquidity, and then it also gives them Ripple's protocol that gives them the ability to manage and issue CBDCs. So while a lot of people believe that there's a lot of freedom associated with this, they have to understand that they've orchestrated it so carefully to where they're going to run this whole new system. There's not going to really be a decentralization part of it, only like some aspects, kind of how he said. So when people are putting this out there, and you guys know who we're talking about, is the Nasara Jasara guys, they're not giving you the full picture. They're giving you the information that they want to believe because of the information they've been limited to, in my opinion. But there's a lot of things that are not being covered by some of the biggest names in the crypto space, and it's a real shame. So, Edo, let's get your take on this, and we'll go ahead and circle back to me and close. I do have another call here shortly, so yeah.
Yeah, we can jump on the final thoughts for me. As you said, the big names, we are becoming big now, but I'm saying some of the traditional names here on the crypto space, they are ignoring the whole narrative. I think they prefer to have a romanticized view about what crypto really represents. I mean, the more delusional ones are the Bitcoin maximalists, the Bitcoin cult. I think it's pretty obvious now. That now we know that there are many ties from the government itself. I'm not going to get on the whole history of Bitcoin, but I'm just saying that it doesn't represent what it has been portrayed as, something that is designed for freedom. And I think it's quite the other way around. I just see it's like a precursor for CBDCs. They just released Bitcoin as a way to make people use to digital transactions, make it very attractive. Came with a better version, which happens to be XRP. So I think we have to be very mindful that most people, especially on the digital space, especially influencers, they're not going to give you the whole picture. It's far more, it generates more engagement for them to only see one side of the history, but there are actually multiple sides, even from the decentralization perspective, as Versan said before. So I want you guys to take everything very carefully, every information you're getting online, especially about Bitcoin. And just get prepared. I think it's going to be the next 2 or 3 years. I think it's going to be very intense. It's so much unfolded that sometimes it's even difficult for ourselves to process all of this information. I don't know how you, Versana and Vandal, how you guys feel, but sometimes I promise you, I go to bed and have all these things like circling in my mind, and I'm trying to even explain to myself, so let alone sometimes giving the best message. But I'm just trying to put puzzles. It's a multi-dimensional chess game, and I think this live streaming that we do every Monday really helps myself to organize the ideas mentally, especially coming together with people like both of you and David.
Yeah. And this is, to some degree, I'll be honest with the audience, this is like therapy for me. I'm able to talk about what I research, what I know, and get to share these concepts and ideas with some very intelligent people in this space, and also a big shout out to the whole audience out there. A lot of very smart people out there. I did get to meet quite a few of them at the QFS meeting. That was very interesting, by the way. Not a lot of people agreed with me on certain things over there, just so y'all know. Anyways, as far as the whole Nasara Jasara thing, I really believe that more of what we're talking about here is going to reveal itself as the global situation, including the conflicts with the war, escalate, right? You have to understand we're in a very complex scenario with the G7, the US, and the deep state. Some people want to call them the cabal or whatnot, right? On one side. And then on the other side, we have the BRICS nations, right? And whether, again, this is being orchestrated by both sides to bring in a new system, that's a whole different story and a whole nother rabbit hole, which I have personally went into. And I've spoken to people off record about this, right? I've explored the theories, researched them carefully, and even discussed them with like very good names out there, like people you might be watching in this space. But what really matters is the same thing. You have to prepare yourself. Do not rely on someone to come and save you, right? And like David said, if there's going to be a debt jubilee, which I think there will be, because there's an incentive to dissolve the global debt. And that's, I talked about this before in a short that went pretty viral out there. But my point, though, is that we are all responsible for ourselves and to each other, right? And I think by staying informed, of course, being proactive, having diverse perspectives, we're going to be able to navigate the turbulent times ahead, right? Or whatever does come. So just understand that this period of this transition that we're seeing is going to be a little bit challenging, but it presents, again, significant opportunities for those who are prepared. The future belongs to those who adopt and take charge of their own destiny. And I think that's where we are today. Mandela, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to put into this?
Yeah. So, well, I just want to say that I agree with you. There's a probability. From a probability statistical standpoint, there is a high probability that a Nasara Jasara will take place at some point in the future. However, though, just so people know, I'm telling you how it's not going to be a free lunch. This is what David was trying to emphasize. So yes, it will potentially happen because of all the debt issues in the world. But it's not going to be a free lunch. You're going to have to trade off something for it. It could be your liberty, your financial sovereignty. There will be a trade-off, okay? This is how they play their cards. They don't just give you a free lunch. It's not how the world works. If you think it is, please step out of the bubble, because you're going to hurt yourself and your family. And be extremely careful who you listen to. And I just want to tell you guys that, so that when we come on here to do this, we really try to, share as much information as we can with the public. And we don't want you to take everything we say at face value. We always encourage people to do your own research, use your brain, have some critical thinking, question everything, not question some things, question everything, and really try to connect the dots and use your best judgment. Try to make sense of things. There's a lot of pundits out there, YouTube, phony influencers, people trying to pump this, promote that, push different narratives again. And just so you know, the CIA over here, well, they have a few buildings that are actually sites where they have bots operating to push narratives online. Just so you guys know that. That's real. It's real. I'm telling you. So be careful what narratives and individuals you follow that really don't disclose their true identity on Twitter, on YouTube, and different platforms. And just so you know, you guys, the information we're giving you, it's the real deal. I'm a former banker, International Bank of Commerce, Bank of America. Our grandfather held prominent advisory positions and government positions, and was actually a private advisor to King Fahd bin Abdulaziz when he was second in line as prince. So I'm just telling you guys,
that's true.
the information is the real deal here. Okay, so just use your own judgment.
Yeah, you know what? This conversation can go on and on forever, and I actually do want to put one more thing in here. You know, there's a massive disconnect between, I think, what we're seeing happening in the crypto space and what's, again, supposed to happen. Just so y'all know, and I'm sure people out there can feel this, we're supposed to be at the end of an accumulation phase, and a bull run is supposed to start. But somebody's holding back the bull run. And I've talked about this before. I think they're trying to really impoverish more people so they can get you to sell the assets that you can no longer afford to hold on to. And Edo and I talked about this also off record, and my brother, it's just, that's what we see happening. You know, we see that happening in the world today because there is that massive disconnect of wealth, and they're trying to widen that wealth gap too. If they're going to create the dependency on some new system, which we're talking about investing in the infrastructure, they're going to go ahead and wipe out most of the middle class. And just so y'all know, most of these cryptocurrencies, right, they have no real use case or place in the future economy. And I think people need to understand that the institutions still run everything. They control the banking system. They control the crypto markets. It's all rigged through artificial intelligence these days and advanced computer systems like Aladdin, even from BlackRock. So it's not a secret. And I even said before, even when we were at the Quantum Financial Summit, the whole market is rigged. And it's been rigged for a very long time. So again, whether this rigged system is coming to an end or not, doesn't matter. A lot of people are still going to get wiped out in the process. And that is going to just play into the massive disconnect in the wealth gap. You know, it's not hard to see what's going on here. And what we see with the digital assets is the institutions sweet talking the masses with digital assets that have no real future while simultaneously attacking them. And that's all part of the narrative to control how people perceive the crypto market. And what are they doing while they're doing this? They're buying everything that's cheap, that has a real use case. They're adopting the technologies that are going to be essential for the future. XRP is one, for instance. You know, it's a big player in all of this. So yes, somebody put in the comments earlier that XRP holders have been correct. I think XRP holders have been right. They know what they understand the digital asset to some degree, but a lot of the XRP holders are in this space because they got lucky. I'm just going to point that out because a lot of XRP holders are perpetuating bad information too. Just saying. Last thing I'll tell you guys is Mendel and I are going to be on Brad Kimes' show, so I'm very excited about that. We're going to have the opportunity to speak with him, so we'll keep you posted.
Digital perspective.
Digital perspectives. That's correct. It's an absolute honor. So if he's watching this, I just want to give him a shout out and say thank you very much for the opportunity. So,
and Edo,
what were you anything you want to say? I know we keep going in circles. I mean, I love doing these conversations, but
doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I love to have conversations with you, and hopefully one day we're gonna do this live streaming, the three of us in the same place. You know.
Yeah, the studio, the one we're setting up now in Italy, the one in Milan.
Yeah, it's a real deal.
I just want to say happy Father's Day, Dad, if you're watching, if you are.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, your dad,
Dad. We love you very much.
We love you. Yes.
Yeah. You know what's funny is our father is a big he's very involved in the XRP thing. Like we've had discussions about this with my father. He's like, holy shit, you guys were right about this. He's like, it's happening and people don't know anything. I mean, it was just funny, you know. But it's incredible to see
does he check XRP
have our father's stature. I'm sorry?
Does he check the XRP price?
He's a macro guy, just like us.
He's very low key. Yeah, he has to be.
Well. Yeah, overall,
all right, guys.
I especially for everyone. We had over 2,000 people watching us live. If you join now and you want to see the repetition, you can find on Versant and Vandel Black Swan Capitalist YouTube channel. Just go there and type live, and you're going to be able to see the repetition from the beginning. I think that's important to say.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone, for your kindness and
Yeah.
to be with us here every Monday.
Thank you, everybody,
guys,
for
all your
watching.
support.
Thank
Mhm.
you, guys.
Thank you.
Edo,
Thank you. And
always
we're going to
good
be putting a lot more good information out there. I think also we have Rick Rule coming on the show, and we're trying to get Jordan Belfort. So we'll keep y'all posted. Anyways, I'm going to end this stream, guys. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Edo, I'll talk to you later. Versan.